this is Joan from Wrazel. Today we're here with Freddy Sayegh from Green Holdings Group.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me out today.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're going to be talking about his company and what he does and challenges he faces and how he solves them. So thank you for coming.
Thank
we're
you for
really
having
excited.
us.
So what is Green Holdings Group?
So, Green Holdings Group is a company that is a parent over multiple brands and licenses in the cannabis space. This part of the company, which I operate directly, handles the brand management, the sales team, the marketing, and the business development. And I allow the cultivators and extractors to do what they do over there. So our job is to kind of be the engine and the glue to the company.
Okay, great. Can you give me some examples of how you do that?
Sure. My background is a criminal defense attorney, and so back in the days, we would meet different people in the space, but I met them through handcuffs. And as the cannabis industry began evolving, my practice and the needs of my clients began evolving. And so, as Proposition 215 started to blossom and create different forms of business structures and entities, our clients and their needs also evolved. So we went from a criminal justice standpoint to, okay, you are some form of a business, although you can't be profitable. How can we keep you within the laws and the realms of protection? And then I said, okay, now you have a real business. How do we keep you structured and how do we grow you? And so I've worked with the largest cannabis companies on earth. I also produce large-scale cannabis events. I consult, I give speeches all across the country, and so along the way, I followed this as a passion. And in 2014, I went to the city of Adelanto, and I had championed that city, helped draft and pass licenses, creating the first city commercial cultivation, and that the state adopted thereafter, and it blossomed into what we have now, which is Prop 64 legalization. During that phase, we had acquired property and began building out state-of-the-art cultivation, which is primarily focused on renewable energy, renewable resources. And so we've built a system with technology that's probably second to none, where we can cultivate and extract on levels that no one can, at cost that no one can. So our electricity cost is about 10% of our neighbors. And so what I began doing is, since I'm not a cultivator or an extractor, I'm just kind of a strategist. I went and I sought after both either clients or friends who I thought were incredible, either as cultivators or extractors or brands, and I brought them underneath my wings, and we partnered with them so that the best of the best is handling the cultivation, the best of the best is handling the edibles, so forth, so on. And so that was the model that we've kind of built out. And so we separate our sales and marketing team independently from the grow operation, things of that nature. And there we strategize on a daily basis on how to continue with pride in the product, to make sure that everything is clean and lab tested, and to market on levels we can't see. We didn't have a golden opportunity to raise capital or things of that nature. So everything we did was self-funded. So everything was blood, sweat, and tears. So every move that you make had to be perfect because there's no room for errors in what we do. In addition, the passion for the plant, the passion for activism, the passion for, seeing people leave traditional Western medicine and move to an Eastern, more holistic form of medication. And overall, as a criminal defense attorney, getting people out of jail or cleaning up their records. So Green Holding Group is, it's a pretty dynamic company, and we work with all other companies and brands and things of that nature. It's never been, me or us against the world. It's always been a partnership in helping them, whether bringing them under events or building their brands or marketing them. So that's a roundabout what we do.
Well, that's extremely fascinating. Do you still practice law?
I do. That's my baby. I mean, I love to get in the court and get in the ring and do things, although I do it as least as I possibly can. It kind of keeps me sharp.
Yeah.
But I try to focus more on, cannabis-related clients and things of that nature.
You mentioned not having access to capital, so having to kind of bootstrap everything and having there be no room for error. Do you think if you did have access to capital, it would have been easier for you, or do you think it kind of made you who you are now?
I'm going to answer that in two parts.
Sure.
One, it made us who we are because when you spend your own money, you've got to be innovative. For instance, the rolling trays were $250,000. We didn't have that, so we built them. We built them better, faster, and for about $10,000. And now we've created this technology that everybody looks and goes, we don't want the ones we spent $250 for. We want these. Two, no debt. You know, when you don't have debt, you don't have we don't have a rent. So we're able to do things that a lot of these guys keep falling deeper into debt. Two, what I see people do is they fail their investors because it's so easy for someone to spend someone else's money. And being an attorney, I'm always getting things when things go bad. And that's when they usually call me. I mean, they'll hire me for about 10 minutes to review a contract, but thousands of hours when they go bad. So people are just not wise with investors' money. And so that built a lot of tough skin on us. And so we know where to get things and how to hustle them, how to build them ourselves, and to be more ingenious. To answer the question the opposite, being that I'm such an activist and very public figure in this industry, I get a lot of incredible opportunities that I passed on because we didn't have the capital. So you give a guy like me capital and it's going to be something incredible because when you put your own money in, I care. You know, first off, I'm an attorney. So my job, I have such a higher standard. I just can't be the kind of guy who could just spend money or do things because even though you may not hire me as the attorney and you invest in something that we do, I still have a higher standard of duty to you. In addition to the fact that when you spend your own money, you know what it's like. So, and finally, you pay off the investor sooner the less money you spend. So opportunities come to me that don't come to others normally because I'm an attorney, because of my space, that are beyond incredible that investors would flip over. So they constantly come in situations.
I mean, that's great. What would you say to somebody who's just starting out and let's say they're trying to build a company like yours to help others?
Okay, so there's different types of people who enter into the space. So I'm going to kind of hopefully keep it short.
Go ahead.
I'm a long-winded guy. You have the white-collar traditional investors, institutional investors, things of that nature. I put those people in one category. What I look to is when they come to me and they have an issue or they plan on investing or they plan on entering a space, I do a thorough SWOT analysis on them. Are they simply capital looking to make more capital? Are they vested in their company? Are they going to be working in it? Do they have experience in it? Who's going to manage the money? What projects are they looking at? Are they looking to buy projects that are already all the money bled out of them? Or are they willing to come into a city and hire a guy like me and go and meet with the city council and pass along, get a dispensary license with $100,000 versus buying a $6 million piece? The next group of people are those who want to enter the space who are using their own money. So what I look at them and I say, okay, what does it have you been doing your whole life? Well, I've been an accountant, successful accountant. I've saved all this money and I heard there's great money in it. And a lot of times I tell them, don't go into the cannabis space. You want to get into the space? You want to do well? Let's turn you into a cannabis accounting firm. Because it's just not the guys who grow the cannabis or extract it that are going to do well. It's all the ancillary businesses, and that's what you know. People think the mere fact that you're going to cultivate cannabis, you're going to have big success, and that's not the case. The competition is thicker, is harder, is faster, is leaner, is smarter, is more experienced, have put traps and all kind of things. So here you come, and capital does not fix a cannabis issue. And you see that with MedMan, you see that in the canopy issues, you see that in all kind of places. Going into substantial debt is not the smart move. Now, this happens in other spaces, but this is a disrupted industry right now. It's broken up into pieces. There's not enough retail. There's too many cultivation issued out, licensing, things of that nature. So you really better have a thorough strategy. And, you know, I've seen too many people invest into a 500 lighter from their cultivator that they bought weed from who grew the best 16 lights. Well, we're talking 500 lights. We're talking about multi-level frameworks of management, SOPs. You can't use certain nutrients. You can't use certain pesticides. So everything that he was doing is not going to apply in this new world. Do you know what I mean? And what's your long-term and short-term strategy? Are you building a company for life? Are you building it to get bought out? Are you building it to be acquired?
Yeah.
And I've never seen a project under budgeted ever. The only way you will know it is if you did it like we have. We built it from desert to empty desert and got all the way. I started in 2014. It's 2019, and we're barely getting our products out. I'm barely having a launch party in September.
Yeah.
So, my best advice is to surround yourself by people who know what they're doing, and slow-foot it in. You know, so if you're a cannabis accountant, do a cannabis accounting. You're going to have 10 clients. You're going to see their books. If that's the guy you want to bring on the team, not the guy who can say that they can promise the world.
That's very insightful. And, you know, we see it a lot with companies that we are like looking to work with or clients that come to us. We really do. We also like to look in depth at them and ask them those questions because they need to answer them in order to be successful. So I think that's very insightful, especially coming from you who is building this amazing business. So tell me a little bit about the companies that you guys work with, like that you invest in.
So we have our internals, meaning these are brands that are Green Holdings brands that we baby and nurture and create and develop. Our flagship flower is a group called White Angel, White Angel Farms. They've been cultivating Proposition 215 for 10 years. Everywhere I went, they were the most sought after brand. So like Snoop had Leafs by Snoop, but would only smoke White Angel. When we're doing, Pooh was doing a grow house, he only wanted White Angel. When they launched the pharmacy on Dr. Dre with Apple, all they did for the whole weekend during the show was talk about and smoke White Angel. And having a product that's incredible is one thing, but for us, it's all about the people. Who stands behind it? Are they people that are smart? Are they good business people? Can I live with them? Can I work with them? Can I go to war with them? When I look at a business partner, I said, is this guy going to be at my funeral? Yeah. That's the longevity in relationships we have because we only have time. And I don't have time. I've passed up deals with some incredible companies that have IPOs in the billions of dollars because the people behind them were not a strong, rock-solid foundation. And so, in addition to their work ethics, the White Angel team, in addition to the quality of cannabis, the innovation. I mean, they're innovating strains that next year people are going to be on. And so, my job is to forecast those things because it's not awesome to be the best right now and emulate that. It's what's the next best. I mean, there was 6 years in Los Angeles where if it didn't have an OG to it, you weren't selling it. Now we've moved into exotic strains. Now where are we going next? I was there when the first distillate I've ever seen came out by Soul Selects, the first time anyone ever seen it. And to see where it's gone as far as concentrates goes and development of concentrates. Because I produced events, it was like we did a hemp and everything was shatter. Nobody knew what it was. And 6 months later, we came back to Shatter World and it didn't exist. It was all sauces. No, Shatter was so 6 months ago. So every month in cannabis is like light years because the innovation and the one-upping and the technology and things of that nature. That also hurts because a company puts so much into a brand or a technology or hardware. By the time they get some footing, people have moved on to the jewel and they no longer want the threaded or the pod or the things of that nature. So you really need to forecast what's going on. The next brand is a kid who's like the Chris Angel of extracts, and it was one of our favorite brands, which was Bad Wizard Concentrates. So the kid has just been a pioneer and a technical genius, and of course I wrapped my hands all around him and brought him into the family. And Bad Wizard Concentrates is just incredible. They are the BHO line of ours. They have a subline called Cannabis Cult. It's very unique. I let him involved in the marketing, and so it's very dark and gothic and all of that, but it just flows. And so I came out of the music industry, and I saw these labels would sign a rapper or an artist or a band and then try to change them. And I said, well, why'd you sign them if you want to put your stamp on it? And so I give them a lot of creative control so that they could be who they are, those who want to be creative. And so Bad Wizard Concentrate's incredible. Our rosin type of solventless is produced by Mad River. And these guys, so when people started squeezing cannabis, it was kind of a joke. Like if you weren't doing BHO, people laughed at you. And so those guys with the press, would get this oil, and it was solventless, and they were the joke. Well, Mad River was on the forefront from altering it from that state, from the ice wax state, and turning it into forms of concentrates and butters and batters. Now it's like all people want is solventless, based upon the consistency and quality and clarity and things of that nature. And so I knew they were superstars. And then once we put them with the flower from White Angel to the Mad River, it was just incredible. So what they're producing is incredible. And then one of our edibles is Dream On. It's a alternate form to promethazine or lean that was popular in the syrup worlds. In addition, it's a high-level THC that has a lot of medicative properties, and so we formulate them both in a tincture and an availability to kind of mix it with a drink and things of that nature. So for those with serious medical conditions, there it has a lot of positive uses because it has RSO is the foundation and base, which has a lot more terpene profiles, a lot more spectrum than the pure distillate, which is just too clean. Or if you like to party, then you can mix it in a drink and have it in a syrup type of vibe. And then we have different edible companies and things of that nature that we're developing along the way.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Do some of your companies like work together? I know you mentioned White Angel. And,
yeah, so
okay.
I'm a real stickler in relationships. Because as soon as there's a cancer, it starts to affect things, and people start to splinter off in groups and things of that nature. And you see that in the financial structure, so that the best grower isn't doing his best because he's worried about this other extractor doing this and that. And so what I've done is I've partnered with all of them in an equity situation, because employees will work their hours, but a person who knows that they can grow and expand and create and innovate and design and know that the work they put in is going to be the work that they get out is the type of people that I want to be around. In addition, all these guys were entrepreneurs when I found them, so that entrepreneur spirit has always been within them. And so what I do is I force them to not only work, but to create projects together, which they become partners in that, and create projects, they create partners in that. And so they only have an added benefit to make sure that you are doing incredible, and you're doing incredible, and you're doing incredible, because the foundation is built that way. And so hopefully I've created a framework or a campus where thoughts, creativity, development of new concepts and ideas grow in a family type of origin versus a competitive type of origin.
That's beautiful, because there's not a lot of stuff out there, especially in the cannabis industry. There's not a lot that do that, because then they're growing together. And
Correct.
that's great. You mentioned having to innovate quickly, or the nature of the cannabis industry innovating quickly, and how it kind of can harm some brands and help others, I guess. What do you see as the next trend that hasn't really happened yet?
All right, I'll give you guys a couple. Better think when you get your money. What I've seen was smokable hemp, because of the new regulation and the legalization of hemp and things of that nature, starting to really explode. Not just in the vape or THC. You've got a lot of people who love opening up a jar. These probably kids from the 70s who love breaking up the weed and rolling it and smoking it, but for some reason they no longer have the affinity of the THC effects. And so that flowers in its infancy. So when you open it, it looks like old brickweed from the old days, from the 90s. I see a vision where high level high level CBD grown indoor, just like the highest level THC in a very flavorful, high terpene, smokable form is going to be a big thing. Because now you're going to open up to an entire consumer base, including myself. I get paranoid when I smoke certain strains, who will feel comfortable and calm knowing that there's 32% CBD and a 2% THC, that they enjoy smoking, and that has the scents and the terpenes and all that. Because the medicinal value is not CBD in its isolated form. It's the entire synergy profile with the different forms of terpenes, with the different cannabinoids, all mixed in that create the medicinal effects that attach to your endocannabinoid system that works and functions well. So I see that being the next big thing. You are looking at a segmented market of baby boomers that have the most disposable income, that are seeking the most health, and are products of the 60s. You know, these guys were at Woodstock. So they're not their parents who've been, brainwashed to the war on drugs and the effects of cannabis. So you're looking at a huge market of those who don't just want hemp, because its medicinal values are different. So I see that as the next big thing as far as a market product.
That's really cool. So with that being said, are you looking to invest in hemp companies, or like specifically ones? So would it be specified, like hemp companies that are growing for the hemp
So this
flower?
would be a not a hemp product.
Got it.
This would be a real cannabis product, which may have 2, 3, 4, 5, 7% THC levels, but with a 30% CBD. So what happens is CBD is the antithesis of THC. So if you're too high, you take some CBD and it'll bring you back down. And so there's always been a balance. Okay, so you ever see like a pendulum that knocks?
Yeah.
Okay, and you ever touch that pendulum off? Well, that's your endocannabinoid system. And so many factors in our world, in our lives, throw it off. It's either our diet, our sleep, or things of that nature. And so the body has an endocannabinoid system with endocannabinoid receptors. And so the use of the concoction, the CBD, the CBN, the CBG, the THC, is essentially balancing back the endocannabinoid system. This is all pure facts. See, cannabis was called cannabis back in the day, okay? And then there was the Marijuana Tax Act, which says that you can no longer cultivate cannabis. And what they did back then is they grouped up hemp and marijuana together. And the term marijuana came later because that was the Spanish term. And so in order to get rid of the positive sounding effects of cannabis and the endocannabinoid system that the body has built in, see, we didn't have a endo-opiate system. We didn't have an endo-aspirin system. We had an endocannabinoid system. And so it regulates it. It regulates your breathing. I mean, one single dose of CBD automatically reduces your blood pressure. You are talking about millions of people on blood pressure medication or diabetes or things of that nature. So the groupings of these is where the future is at. So the products that we would look at would not be a hemp-based product, which is 0.03% of THC or less, but more so that one, and I'm not throwing shade on the hemp industry, but one that has more significant effects on the body from a medicinal standpoint. So look into a product that would be cultivated under a marijuana license, but just have a 28-30% CBD level, 4 or 5% THC level, and function that way. You see, in all other forms of medicine, so let's just go back to the 70s, okay? So what happens is here we have the Marijuana Tax Act essentially stifled the entire market. We're talking about 3,000 products made out of hemp and cannabis. We're talking about saving trees. We're talking about saving the earth. And purely for political reasons. So here comes the 70s, right? Actually, the early 60s. We start into the Vietnam War. And now we have a division of America like we do today. We have those who are in the anti-war movement and those who came from World War I, World War II, who were more of the conservative movement. And just like Donald Trump, Nixon sought to divide this country. And so he did so by making it either with them or with us. And so what he did is created a Controlled Substance Act and placed marijuana, along with hemp, on a Schedule 1, which says there's absolutely no medicinal value and high levels of addiction. Where cocaine and methamphetamines were a Schedule 2, which you have tons of research and science on a Schedule 2, but you cannot touch it at all if it's a Schedule 1. And he did so intentionally. That blocked off universities, pharmaceutical companies, and researchers from being able to really study this product. So the only information we get is from the federal government, which says addicted, bad, and all that. They switched the name from cannabis to marijuana because it was Spanish. In addition, they released a series of films like Reefer Madness, which says, hey, if you smoke this stuff, you're going to be raped by blacks and Mexicans. And so that's how they created this division. And for many, many years, the only information we would get is from the federal government. Then after a while, people started to get smarter. And then we started to look into foreign countries like Israel and their science. And then, the U.S. government in 1994 patented CBD. Even though it said there's no medicinal benefits, they said we also have the rights to control it as a medicine. And a patent only lasts 20 years. And people can only be dumb for so long. And this new generation, see, these millennials and Xers and premillennials are smart. My parents and generations after me would just automatically take any medicine that a doctor gave them because they said that this is if this is the medicine, then that's what it is. These kids today research it, look it up, digest it, and see if there's an alternate form than taking this pill. And so this is where you see the gravitation towards the natural holistic Eastern medicine, which specifically includes cannabis. Because prior to the Marijuana Tax Act, nearly every single medicine had some form of cannabis or cannabinoids. Now, they didn't know that it's healing and that there's an endocannabinoid system. They just knew it worked. They knew they had insomnia, they took a little bit of this and they slept well. They knew their kid had seizures and they took a little bit of this and the kid had less seizures. They didn't have the science behind it, but neither did the cavemen. And so what we have is there's what's called clinical trials to get FDA approval. And a clinical trial can last like 10 years because they want to know if they give it to you now, what's going to happen to you in 10 years? Are you going to have bleeding ulcers or cancer or brain defects or things of that nature? And so that's why it took so long to get FDA approval. We've traced back cannabis all the way back to thousands and thousands of years, to early caveman. Our bodies evolved with an endocannabinoid system because it was taking in endocannabinoids. If caveman had all opiate system, then you knew that early man was taking in tons of opiates. That wasn't the case. Our diet was removed in the turn of the century of cannabis and the endocannabinoids. And so something that our body needed to evolve and survive was eliminated from it. And this is not stoner stuff. This is scientific stuff. So what we have in all other forms of medicine is the ability to break it apart and say, hey, this medicine fixes this problem. There's so far been found 53 different cannabinoids, each one of those attached to a different part and heal a different thing. So what I see the future is this little pill here, which will have cannabis or sativa or whatever it is specifically pinpoints this. So one cannabinoid fixes pancreatic cancer. One does inoperable brain tumors. So you don't have to take this entire flower. You can strategically pinpoint the ailment. And the beauty about a substance that's been in the human diet for 10,000 years is you have the largest and longest clinical trial on earth. FDA only asked for 10 years. I'm giving you 10,000. And in 10,000, no side effects, no deaths, no bleeding ulcers, no ass falling out of your back. So this is where we are, and the future is going to be incredibly innovative. This is where you see a lot of companies, a lot of products, a lot of innovation coming. Hopefully not saturation, but it's a movement. I mean, once we start stopping tearing down 2,000-year-old redwoods and start planting hemp and using it as paper and textiles. I mean, my buddy makes hemp jeans. I think the problem with that is those jeans will never break. Wear cotton, 10, 11, 12 washes, you're on to your next pair of jeans. So we are going to be in the hemp revolution.
I mean, I did not know all of that stuff. Thank you for elaborating so much. It's really important for people to know the history and where everything came from so that they know where it's going to go, like you described. So you really think there's going to be like pinpointed pills and everything
Absolutely.
like that for that?
It's so because I'm an attorney, and because of my prominence in this industry, various type of people would come to me, and they could be a judge who just sentenced 50 people to state prison on a cannabis case, coming to me and says, "You're an attorney-client privilege, but my wife is dying," and they sent her home. And it was devastating to hear, but it was also devastating to know that you knew that there was a secret cure. You knew it existed, yet you applied the black letter law. And when it was your time or your child, or, I worked with a group that dealt with children specifically with operable brain tumors. And what that's saying is, it's so deep and so large that we will kill you if we try to operate. So take your lovely child, go get as many good years as you can, usually 7, and have a nice life. And these mothers were not accepting that. And it would be incredible because I would give these speeches, and then 6 months later I'm doing a speech again, and I have this mom coming up to me showing me x-rays and I mean, thanking me for doing what I could, but not, I wouldn't take credit for anything like that, but for being able to lend a voice to it. And now you see this kid who's 13 with shrinking tumors. It would be nice to say, well, if you took this strain and this property, it's going to shrink 100 times faster. I can't. My cousin, I could tell the story, he was the head of oncology at City of Hope. And so he was on the leading team of research and science in cannabis, in cancer reduction and cancer prevention and cancer cures. And a new piece of radiology equipment came in from Europe. So they grabbed all the people from the oncology department. And so the doctors need to learn how to use this. And so one doctor would stand behind this machine. The other doctors would look. They'd go and they'd check them out and they would turn them out. So finally, when it comes to my cousin, they call all the other doctors and go, "Is this machine broken?" They said no. And they told him he's got stage 4 cancer and to go home. And here he is, the head of the oncology department, and they go, "We can't help you." So what does he do? He calls me and says, "My guy sent me home. They didn't send me for chemo. They didn't send me for therapy. They didn't send me for something new. They said, go home and die. I've got 6 months to live, or hours to live." And once again, it dawned on me. I'm like, why are you guys coming to us at the end of life when there's no other chance? 1, you must know of its benefits. 2, why does it have to be the last resort? Why can't it work in conjunction of your radiology, in conjunction of your therapy, in conjunction of your treatment? You are the head of the oncology department. We kept them alive for 2 years, blown away everybody at the oncology department. But I got them at a stage that no one else could help them, and in a level that we couldn't. And the problem that I had was I said, here's 10 cannabis products. Here's some RSO, here's some flower, here's some vape, here's some this. I can't tell you which one of those CBD, which one of those cannabinoids are going to be the one to fix you. And it could be one from the vape that's helping him here and one from this helping him there. So you got to take them all. And that's not fair. We don't do that to people and say, oh, you have a headache? Here's 25 pills. One of these are going to fix your problem. Yeah. And so the research and science is going to be that one cannabinoid to one problem. And we're talking about those with Crohn's disease. We're talking about the stopping of the progression of Alzheimer's. These are things that have no cure. We're talking about CBD to solve pediatric epilepsy, which is now patented. I mean, I've worked with kids who, when you have 200-300 seizures a day, I mean, the chance of the neck disconnecting from the head and all of its wiring is the reason they die. So now we're reducing these kids to 2 seizures a day. Now they have a life. They're not sleeping with mom in the bed. You're talking about life-changing things. And my argument been, it's that as humans, it's inhumane to keep people away from life-saving medicine. And so hopefully the future is one cannabinoid, one treatment, one ailment, one item.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing your story. Wow. I think I agree with you, and I think the more research that people do and that the government allows others to do, the closer that we'll get to that outcome.
So politically, the landscape is those who are for cannabis, either through legalization or decriminalization, will win in politics. Mm-hmm. Where before, if you said the M word, you're a low chance of you surviving your election. And that happened with me with the city of Adelanto. They were close to bankruptcy, and they said, listen, this can ruin my career. I said, it don't matter. You're going to file bankruptcy, and you're not going to have a career. I said, take a shot with me. So we're talking about politicians who won their election at 51% when they got elected. Mm-hmm. We came in at 80 and 90% wins. And so now the first time you say anything negative about cannabis, your record is gone. And so I know that these Democrats and potentially the current administration are going to have to land on legalization, decriminalization, descheduling in order to survive. Because the will of the people have been denied for so long. And it's like, I'm not telling you to go smoke pot. I'm not telling you your kid should smoke pot. But what I'm saying is if it's going to save my life, or if I simply enjoy it, then I should have the adult right to make such a decision. I'm an adult. I have an adult to determine whether or not I'm going to go to college, whether or not I am going to brush my teeth today. It's the same factors. Mm-hmm. And you could look at anything in life. If you drink too much milk, it'll kill you. If you eat too much food, it'll kill you. If you drink too much water, it'll kill you. If you go to the gym too much, it'll kill you. Mm-hmm. So everything is about your moderation and what's good for you, what's not. I smoked pot all through college and law school. And then when I got out and being an attorney and having to be on my wits and things of that nature, I reduced my use of cannabis. And, that was just a personal reason. Mm-hmm. So people should be able to sustain themselves, especially since it's non-addictive. Yeah. There are some mental addictions where you think you need it, or you become addicted to the properties, like I can't sleep without cannabis. That's not an addiction to cannabis. That's addiction to you wanting to sleep 8 hours through the night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's about personal responsibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I agree. So thank you so much for joining us, Freddy. I know we're going to be talking to your partner now, Everett Woods. Yep. So I really appreciate you coming down here and telling us more about Green Holdings Group.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
We're always here for you. Yeah. And I really appreciate that you guys have created a platform that allows guys like me who have a lot to say to get those words out, because they'll put me on a speaking schedule, and then I'll say, well, you got 10 minutes. I said, well, it's hard to put 1,000 years of cannabis into 10 minutes, but somehow we figured it out. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you did a great job telling us, from how to find the correct investments and vet investments, as well as the history and everything behind it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.